Welcome back to the DSR channel. This is week 9, and we are about done with the mechanics in this book. This is going to be the last episode on the mechanics of the book Forgotten Realms, Heroes of Faerun. This is going to be on the new spells. So, yeah, another mixed bag. Some things are great. Some things are maybe a little too strong. Some things are really weak, and a few things in the middle. And as a reminder, a couple of things. This table, you don't have to memorize it. You can get the PDF version and the CSV version. Just download it off my Google Drive, which is linked in the description. You can, and let me remind you as well, like when the columns that say like tank, frontliner, skirmisher, range, blaster, those are the roles. And by rating something in that column, I am not saying tanks need to take it or skirmishers need to take this. What I'm saying is this is giving you those kinds of functions to add to your character. So if you are not tanky enough, you might want to take one of these tank functions. If you are plenty tanky, even though you are a tank, there's no reason to keep doubling down on tank. You would want to switch to something that you maybe and add some functionality that you don't have. This just gives you an idea of what kind of the functionality this spell gives you. So whether how, because I think that just simply ranking a spells or anything as just a flat A, B, C, D doesn't give you enough information to know what to do with it. So the idea here is that you can say, oh, it's a support spell. Oh, it's a blast spell. Oh, it's a control spell. That kind of stuff, okay? That's what we're going for. Alustriel's Mooncloak. And I am not going to read the whole spell anymore. That's making these videos way too long. I'm going to try to just summarize. So what this one does, it has a duration of, it's an action casting time, a duration of 1 minute, concentration. For the duration, like dim light fills an emanation, 20-foot emanation around you. You and all of your allies inside the emanation have half cover, which, as a reminder, that's +2 to your AC and +2 to your dexterity saving throws. And you have resistance to cold, lightning, and radiant damage. And while the spell lasts, you can use one of the following options, which ends it immediately. So it's kind of got that flavor from Sacred Weapon, Holy Weapon, that the 5th level Paladin spell, where it has a persistent effect, but you can end it to do some other things. So if you end it early, you could do one of these things, which is Liberation, to end the frightened, grappled, or restrained condition on you. So when you fail the save against those conditions, you can take a reaction to succeed instead. So kind of a minor legendary resistance against those conditions. Not great for a 5th level spell. Then there's Respite, which as a magic action, you or an ally within the area regains 4d10 hit points plus your spellcasting modifier. So it's got this like little healing boost, which is a little better than a 2nd level casting of Cure Wounds. And this is a 5th level spell. So you would not cast this just for the healing effect. And you would definitely not cast this just for the liberation effect. You have to have it up first before those conditions are applied. But this is a decent spell because of the half cover and resistance to 3 damage types, which between those 3, you're going to run into those, frequently. Like maybe not every session. It really depends on the campaign you're running. If you're in Icewind Dale, probably every session. Maybe not every combat, but every session. So that's nice. The +2 to dexterity saves and +2 to AC, always good. So you get this nice, decent support for the whole party. Right? 20-foot emanation is a pretty big area. They have enough room to move around in there. And when you are done with combat, I wouldn't end it early to heal somebody, but when you're done with combat, you might as well heal somebody because it's going to end anyway. It'll last 1 minute. It's not going to last you to the next combat. So you might as well just end it after combat and heal someone. So you get this nice kind of like bonus heal when you're done with it. I give it an A. A for support, C is a heal spell, and like a C for survival. Next is Backlash. It's a level 4 abjuration spell. Bards, sorcerers, warlocks, and wizards get it. It's a reaction with a range of 60. It works on yourself. So the reaction is when you take damage of any kind, you take damage, you get 40, you roll 46, reduce the damage by that amount, and the triggering creature makes a con save, and they take 46 on a failed save, half as much on a successful save, and it scales or upcasts by 1d6 for each spell slot level above 4. So it's basically 1d6 per spell slot level because it starts at 4th level. All right, so this is interesting. Most of the time, shield is better because you can just prevent the attack and take no damage using shield. But shield only works on attack rolls. It doesn't help against crits. And if you really want to prevent some damage against some sort of AoE effect you took, if you're taking any kind of elemental damage, Absorb Elements is probably better because that's a 1st level spell and it's also a reaction. And that's going to cut the damage in half, which is probably more than this. So between shield and absorb elements, those are better most of the time. But there will be times when absorb elements isn't going to work, or you already have resistance to it. Then shield isn't going to help you. Then you cast this if you really want to prevent some damage, and this will prevent a chunk of damage and do a chunk of damage back to them. It's okay. Like I don't, it's okay to put on your character sheet. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to say this earlier, but there's an overall rating here, which is these things are rated in different categories of roles, and the overall is kind of like how would I boil that all together, and should you consider putting this on your spell list with your limited spell preparations? So this one is probably not until you're like high level. If you're a high level full caster, and you have just lots of, you've got 20 plus spell preparation slots, you've got 20 plus spell slots, you got lots and lots of room to fit this on there, then I would put it on there. And, you might use it 5% of the time after shield and absorb elements. But here's the elephant in the room. WotC, what happened here? The level 10 Blade Singer feature, which was bad before, Song of Defense, it lets you spend a spell slot as a reaction when you take damage to just reduce the damage by 5 times the spell slot. So now you've just created a spell which is also available to wizards already that you could have had since level 7, and now you get a level 10 feature that, yes, it will block, on average, your Song of Defense will block slightly more damage than Backlash, but does no reflection damage. And the reflection damage from Backlash probably makes this better. Just better. So what happened here, guys? Like, you missed your opportunity to fix this level 10 lame feature that's on the Blade Singer. What a bummer. All right, Blade of Disaster. All right, so this is a reprint from the Icewind Dale adventure. So now it's in, I guess it's still expanded rules. Level 9 conjuration spell available to sorcerer, warlocks, and wizards. It's a bonus action casting time. And it is basically the same spell, which is a spell that's like a souped up version of Spiritual Weapon. They increase the damage from the previous version, and they increase the movement speed of it from the previous version. But otherwise, it's identical. A little bit of wording changes in that last line, a few other things like that. It's identical, right? So they increase the damage from 4d12 per hit to 10d6, and that's an average damage increase of 22 to 35. So more than a 50% damage increase. And remember, this attacks twice as your bonus action. So that's a decent chunk of damage, but it's a 9th level spell. So not only is it your 9th level spell slot, and you only ever get one, it's also your concentration, and you probably are not going to prepare more than one 9th level spell. I mean, maybe. So, but it is also nice that they increase the speed. Like the 20-foot speed on Spiritual Weapon is too little. 30 that this had before was okay because that's usually enough to keep up with most monsters, and the 60-foot that it now has is actually quite nice. So overall, I would give this a B as a ranged damage dealing spell. Because it is a good chunk of damage. You can do it round after round. It's your bonus action, not your main action, but it's taking your concentration. So you can't do other concentration spells, and concentration spells are your bread and butter, your main anything you're doing. It's your main control effects. It's your main everything effect. And this just doesn't stack up to every other 9th level spell. If you're talking about just wanting to do more damage, Foresight might be better than this. Just use Foresight and be firing off the Spellfire Flare or Scorching Rays or, things like that. And maybe a quickened Firebolt. With the advantage from Foresight that would last 8 hours, you're going to get way more damage output over time than this. I'd have to run the numbers. Maybe this is, I don't know what you can combine it with. You'd be casting Firebolt and then doing this twice without advantage. This just doesn't stack up to almost any other 9th level spell. Weird is better. Meteor Storm is better. So overall, I'd say this is a C ranked spell. But if you just really want to, live this, I don't know, fantasy of your character is just some sort of like Gish, this would be a great Gish fantasy type spell. Much like Steel Wind Strike. Very cool Gish fantasy. It doesn't actually synergize at all with being a Gish, in the sense that it doesn't increase your martial capability. So this is a C. Cacophonic Shield. All right, this is a level 3 evocation spell available to bards, sorcerers, and wizards. Casting time's an action, concentration up to 10 minutes, and it's basically Spirit Guardians. Same level, it's slightly less damage, 3d6 instead of 3d8. 10-foot emanation instead of a 15-foot emanation. It also causes the deafen condition when they fail their save against it, which is a pretty minor control effect. It's a very minor control effect. It has almost no effect in most situations. On a on a save, they take half damage. And in other ways, it works basically the same as Spirit Guardians. But it also gives you resistance to thunder damage, and ranged attack rolls against you are made with disadvantage. So that last line actually adds a lot of survival / tank frontliner type capability. And this is available to Bard, Sorcerers, and Wizards. So now you have Clerics with Spirit Guardians. You've got Bard, Sorcerers, and Wizards with Cacophonic Shield. This is a good spell, and those stack, right? If you were to say which one's better, I would still probably say Spirit Guardians is better than this for the offensive capability. This brings a lot of defensive capability, but you can stack them. You can have a Cleric running Spirit Guardians, and you're a Wizard running Cacophonic Shield. The enemies are going to take damage from both, probably twice per round. That's a lot of stacking damage. So I give this an A overall. Plus, it's like, yeah, this is a good tanking feature. This will cause a lot of monsters around you to want to try to attack you to turn this off. Frontliners, this is just dealing out a good chunk of damage. It took one action, but then you're just doing this for free every round. Skirmishers, run by, blast everybody with this, run out, great. Control, not a good control spell. If you're trying to be a controller, this isn't the way to do it. And then survival, just straight up survival effects for the tank frontliner and survival. I give that a B overall. So this is an overall A spell. I would prepare this if you have it available. Conjure Constructs, level 3 conjuration available only to wizards, 60-foot range, and it's a concentration duration up to 10 minutes. So what this does is it's like Conjure Elementals, which was its own kind of subcategory of the Conjure spells, right? Most of the Conjure spells have an AoE effect, and Conjure Elementals and Conjure Constructs create a thing that has an area where it can affect things around in an area, but it only affects one thing per round. It has to do a thing. Conjure Constructs is worse, a lot worse than Conjure Elementals. Conjure Elementals, it doesn't take more of your actions for it to do its thing. It can attack one creature per round just whenever they get close, and then it just can't attack anyone else as long as one is restrained by it. So Conjure Elementals at least can try multiple times. This one takes your magic action. So when you cast it, and it doesn't do anything unless you again use your magic action. So sorry, when you cast the spell and when you take the magic action, it does a thing. It just never does anything else unless you take an action to do it. So and you have two options. You can either try to do some damage, 3d6 force damage, which is poor for a third level spell. Like that is not worth casting, and upcasting it doesn't make it better. You're just expending a more expensive resource for a pretty poor effect. The Orderly Ward, though, gets interesting. At level 3, 1d6 temporary hit points plus your spellcasting modifier. Not good, not worth it. But since temporary hit points don't stack, but you can upcast this, if you upcast this to much bigger spell slots, you could be putting a decent chunk of temporary hit points on somebody that they couldn't get otherwise. And you can do it out of combat. So, and it moves with you. So I guess you could, before a combat, cast this, put temporary hit points on everybody, a good chunk of temporary hit points on everybody. Go through combat, keep concentrating on it, but don't use it in combat unless somebody's desperate for some temporary hit points. And then after combat, give everybody temporary hit points again. And if you upcast with a 5th level spell slot, we're looking at like 3d6 plus your spellcasting modifier in temporary hit points. And out of combat, you can just keep trying over and over and over again until you get a better number. And I don't know about you guys, but as a DM, I'm not going to make my player like roll 25 times to see if you get a good roll. I would just assume after a minute, you've got the best roll possible for at least one creature. And if they have 10 minutes or 5 minutes, 5 people in your party, after 5 minutes, yeah, everybody's got the max number of temporary hit points you could get from this. So 18 plus your spellcasting modifier, which will be 4 or 5. So 22 or 23 temporary hit points that you're just handing out with a 5th level spell slot. There is a point where Power Word Fortify is better when it divides, depending on how many number of players are in your party. or PCs are in your party. But there's also a point where this is better than Power Word Fortify if there are more, right? If you have 6 PCs plus some hirelings plus some other things, this will give more temporary hit points than Power Word Fortify. So this one's kind of a weird trap. Don't take it for damage, and it's probably going to do less damage than just your cantrips. So do not spend your action on this either. So this is like a C for a support spell, only because you can upcast it. Don't cast this at level 3, and it's a D ranked ranged attack spell. So that aspect of it is a trap. Overall, it's a D, unless you are really going to lean into upcasting and massaging, trying to get the most out of those temporary hit points that you possibly can. And then it's a little better than like Power Word Fortify. Not always. Okay. Death Armor. Level 2, Necromancy spell, Sorcerer Wizard. It has a casting of an action, 1 hour duration. And it gives you advantage on death saves. And once per turn, when a creature hits you with a melee attack roll, you can give it 2d4 damage, 2d4 necrotic damage back. So that's an average of 5. What a what a crappy spell. If it was unlimited times per turn, this would be maybe okay for, I don't know, maybe okay. It's questionable, but it doesn't take concentration, so sure. I don't know. If you're high level and you just have you're a full spellcaster and you just have spell slots to burn, sure, why not? Throw it on there. If you do not have just spell slots to burn, don't waste a spell slot on this. Take advantage on death saves is beneficial, but that's like planning to fail. You should use, if you have limited spell slots, use spells that prevent you from getting down to the point where you're making death saves. Right? Spend your spell slots on not making death saves rather than just planning to make better death saves later. Yeah, this is a strange spell. But WotC, the Oathbreaker, is still in playtesting. Take one of those second level spells that you put on their spell list that don't make sense and put this on there. At least it's thematic. Right? This would be thematic for the Oathbreaker, better than the spell list you gave them. All right, Darren's Helpful Homunculi. Level 2 Conjuration, Cleric and Wizard available, action or ritual. It takes 100 gold pieces every time you cast it, which it's consumed. It lasts 8 hours. So here's the interesting thing. What it does is it helps you craft. That's what it's for. And it can help you craft anything. When you cast it, it has the proficiency you need for whatever you're crafting. So it basically lasts 1 day of crafting, because a crafting day is 8 hours. That's specified in the Xanathar's Guide to Everything. So it lasts the whole crafting day. It cuts the time in half for every day that you use it. Okay, so you get 2 days of progress instead of 1 day when you use this. If your DM doesn't play with magic item crafting or crafting in general, then this is completely useless. Don't get it. If they do play with it, then at low levels, this is too expensive to use. But once you reach that point where you have just money to burn, usually like tens of thousands of gold pieces, this is OP. It's just amazing, because it cuts the time of crafting anything in half, right? So instead of 10 days to craft an uncommon magic item, it's 5 days to craft an uncommon magic item, right? And it puts those legendary crafting times from, 350 days to half of that, 175? Half a year instead of a full year. That's a lot. Now you'd have to spend 175, you'd have to cast this 175 times, which would be 17,000 gold. Yeah. No, 170,000 gold. Anyway, it's a lot of money. But if you got money to burn, this could help you make that legendary item that's out of reach. Dirge, level 6 enchantment, available to bards and clerics, takes your action to cast, lasts 1 minute with concentration. And this one is our first of the spells that has a circle casting additional effect. Okay. So first up, it's a 60-foot emanation, so a huge area. All right. It is like a Spirit Guardians, in that it just causes damage, and anybody in that area who, like, all the same triggers. They enter it, they take it effect, they're affected. The area moves on to them, they're affected. When you cast a spell and it appears on them, they're affected. The damage is less than Spirit Guardians, but the damage is not why you cast this thing. Okay. It also, if they fail their save, it causes them to also be prone, slowing them further. And this is interesting, and it might be a mistake that they need to errata, but if they make their save, they take half damage, which is fine, and their speed is halved, and that's the errata part, or potential mistake. They don't specify for how long. Probably, when you see a construction like this in their rules, it usually is something where they mean until the end of its next turn or until the start of your next turn. They probably meant one of those, but as it's written, if they make the save, their speed is slowed, regardless of whether they're in the area of effect anymore. They could move in, save, speed is halved, move out, and until the spell ends, their speed is still halved. So the whole duration of the spell, no resave, no way to get rid of that half movement. So you want them to succeed on the first save. So then they're slowed, and then on the rest of the saves, you want them to fail because now they're also prone, which eats up half of the remaining movement. Okay, and then drop like a plant growth on this. They're never getting anywhere. You can just stand there and they're like 60 feet away, dying, struggling. At some point, they're probably going to try to like crawl away, and you just slowly follow them and watch them die. Okay, this thing is devastating. All right, but what happens if you cast it as a circle spell? All right, well, this one takes a minimum of 2 secondary casters. And when you do that, it has the duration becomes concentration 10 minutes. Okay. And if they fail their save against it, they also gain 1 level of exhaustion. And while they have this exhaustion, long rests neither restore hit points nor reduce the exhaustion level, which probably won't matter, but it could. Like the only way to remove the exhaustion from this is like greater restoration, or if they happen to have some other exhaustion removing effect, which only like the ranger has, because the ranger can short rest to remove a point of exhaustion or a level of exhaustion. And I don't know of any monsters that have anything like that. There is the occasional monster that's just immune to exhaustion, like skeletons, and probably some other undead and constructs, things like that. But against everything else, this is super devastating now. It's now an S tier blast control devastation spell because, and the secondary casters have to use a 4th level spell slot. But every time they get a level of exhaustion, they now have a -2 on their saves. So they're more likely to fail the next save. Okay, so and this has such a huge area, they're going to have to spend multiple turns going through it. And even if they don't fail their save, if they just keep moving through, they're going to take forever to move through it. But you should build, if you're going to have this spell, which you should if you can get it, you should build around it and have effects like plant growth to slow them further, and mind sliver and bane and synaptic static to lower their saves further, so that you start this up, and as they just get into it, just start hitting with mind sliver, synaptic static, bane, lowering their saving throws. So eventually this is going to kill them, and it doesn't have to kill them with the necrotic damage. They die at 6 levels of exhaustion. They could have 1 billion hit points and they still die at 6 levels of exhaustion, and they can't remove it unless they have greater restoration. Like, this is a super devastating spell, like S tier when you circle cast it. But also, let me hit you with some math, okay? So if you think, oh, 60 feet is just a little bit bigger than Spirit Guardians, no. The radius of a sphere, so 10 feet is what Conjure Woodland Beings gives you. That gives you a cubic area of 1,257 feet. Sorry, metric friends, I don't have this calculated in metrics in the metric system. Spirit Guardians has a radius of 15 feet. That gives you an area of 2,800, right? 60 feet, which is the base for Dirge, gives you 45,000 cubic feet of area. And since you're circle casting it, you might as well pick one of the circle. I mean, you should pick one of the circle effects. So let's do expand, which increases the radius further by 10 feet per secondary caster, right? And this is where the spherical effects benefit from expand way more than others, because you only have 1 dimension on a sphere. That's your radius. And so that 1 dimension, any increase there is a cubic effect increase. Like, it's multiplied by power 3, right? You're a power increase of power to the 3rd power to increase this, right? So just 2 secondary casters using the expand effect increases your emanation's radius from 60 feet to 80 feet, and now your area of effect is almost doubled from 45,000 cubic feet to 80,000 cubic feet. All right, massive. Okay. Yes, they had to spend 4th level spell slots. Worth it. Okay, let's look at this on a battle map. All right, so here's a battle map. The big purple effect is Dirge, okay? And that's with two circle casters, or sorry, two secondary casters helping us. So we've got like, you're the bard and you're casting Dirge, and there's a cleric who's got Spirit Guardians running, and there's a wizard who's got Cacophonic Shield running. So you can see the area around the blaster, the little guy on your side, the fireball looking token. That's the radius of Cacophonic Shield, 10 feet. The healer one, that's your cleric. That's the radius of Spirit Guardians, 15 feet. The purple is the 80 feet of Dirge. Okay? Massive difference. Okay? And if they, and you want them to succeed on their first save, remember? Because that cuts their speed in half for the duration of the spell, which is now, and you could use prolong instead of expand to increase the duration. But for one minute, it's usually enough to cover any fight. This is crippling, right? And then all three of you could just be plinking away with like Ray of Frost, Mind Sliver, Synaptic Static. I mean, the blaster, probably a wizard, they should be dropping Synaptic Static on this whole group. Just blam, blam, keep hitting them over and over again with Synaptic Static until all of them have that debuff. The cleric, hit them with other debuff spells that don't take concentration, or just use command to make them run away so they have to come back again. Like anybody who gets close, just command to make them back up. And the bard, you could be hitting them with Mind Sliver. You could be hitting them with Synaptic Static too. None of those are concentration. Just wrecking these guys. It doesn't even matter how many of these demons show up and what that boss guy is. Just wreck them. Just wow, what a crazy powerful spell. I don't know that it's game breaking because it takes three of you casting 3 spell slots. And it's a lot of teamwork. So I actually love the idea of this, and I want to see it in play. I don't think this should be like nerfed or anything. Just leave it as is. I want to see it in play, and I want to see a party come together and just kick an enemy's whole team's butt doing this. Doomtide. All right, this is a level 4 conjuration available to bard, clerics, and warlocks. It is a 20-foot radius sphere, so same area as a fireball. It creates magical darkness, which does not have the same effect as the darkness spell, because the darkness spell has that rider that says it blocks dark vision. Other forms of magical darkness do not block dark vision unless the spell specifically says it has that rider effect. So this doesn't do that. It doesn't block dark vision, which means often useless. A lot of monster stat blocks have dark vision or blind sight or something like that. Gust of wind will push it away, so it is a cloud effect. What it does, it kind of has a synaptic static effect where if they fail their saving throw against it, they're going to take the psychic damage, and they subtract 1d6 from its next saving throw before the end of its next turn. Sorry, from all of its saving throws before the end of its next turn. On a successful save, it takes half damage only. And yes, of course, it does all the same thing. When they move into the cloud, when the cloud moves onto them, they have to make the save. And then the sphere moves away from you at the start of each of your turns, just like Cloud Kill, which is actually a bad thing in my mind. That always makes these harder to be useful, because the enemies are always trying to get closer to you, not further away. And your cloud effect is moving further away. So at most, you're probably going to get them once with this, unless you're in a confined space and it can't move. So the support effect, if you don't have better spells, is okay. I give it a B. The support effect of subtracting a 1d6 from their saving throws. So you cast this, hope that they fail their save, and you're reducing their saving throws so that your allies can hit them with other spells. B. This is really hampered by the fact that it just moves away from you, and if you could direct it, even if it's still the 10 feet. If you could direct where it moves 10 feet instead of just away from you, this would be maybe an A. It would be a lot better. The damage is okay, not great. But it also has circle casting. So let's see what that does. So with this one, you need 5 secondary casters, and you need a special material component, which is a string of 3 black pearls from Pandemonium. So there's no cost associated with that. So it looks like what they're telling you is the DM should make them go on a quest to get this, or go through some sort of effort to get these black pearls. And then if you do, the spell's range becomes a 1 mile range. The duration is increased to indefinite until dispelled, and every secondary caster has to expend a 3rd level spell slot also. And if any of them, including you, start casting Doomtide again, this spell ends early. Okay, and the circle casting also removes concentration. So what it does is it makes it like basically an indefinite lasting duration version of Doomtide. So it just keeps moving away from you forever, and it'll last forever, just going across the whole planet, just destroying everything in its path. I can't think of any time in any adventure I've ever run where that would have been useful for the PCs to do. I can think of plenty of times where this would be a great plot device that the villains would want to use, right? And you got to go stop this thing. Um, Maybe there's one adventure I read where one campaign I read where there was a massive battle at the end, and having just that 1 mile range would have been useful. But with circle casting, you can put a 1 mile range on anything. So yeah, the circle casting version of this is D tier. D. You shouldn't do it. It's a trap. It doesn't make sense. This is a plot device. And overall, this spell is a C, even without circle casting. So I don't think this is good. Elminster's Effulgent Spheres. Level 6 evocation, available to druids, sorcerers, and wizards. You need a 1,000 gold piece opal, but it's not consumed, so you can reuse it. And what it does is it creates 6 chromatic spheres around you, which you can do one of two things with. One, they can absorb energy, basically the same thing, using your reaction as absorb elements without casting the spell, but it still takes your reaction. That is not a good trade-off if that was the only effect, right? One sixth level spell slot for 6 absorb elements is not the same as just expending 6 first level spell slots, or even forced for 4 first level spell slots and 2 second level spell slots. But it's unlikely you're going to get hit with energy damage that many times in one day. Rare. But it also has this energy blast effect, which as a bonus action, you can throw them, kind of like Melf's minute meteors. But it's an attack roll. It does 3d6 of one of those energy types. And the spheres regardless when you throw it, even if you don't hit. So this would be a bad spell, except it has no concentration. Like Melf's minute meteors takes concentration. So you turn this on, you got for an hour, and you have all these. You can either be attacking with it or absorbing energy with it. And I would give this a B overall for that. There's not a lot of ways to weaponize your bonus action as a spellcaster without concentration, right? You've got Melf's meteors, you've got flaming sphere. There's a few ways to do it, but all of those require concentration. So this is the only way to do it without concentration. When you upcast it, you get another sphere for every spell slot. I don't think that's worth it. But what I would do is I would circle cast it, even though it doesn't have an additional circle casting effect. And I would put prolong on it to increase the duration. So you just fire this off at the beginning of the day, or better yet, get enough people to circle cast it with you so it lasts a whole day, 24 hours, or it adds 24 hours. So now it's 25 hours. And then cast this the day before with your best spell slot, and then have this available the whole next day. That would make this an A tier spell if you circle cast it that way. Elminster's Elusion. Level 2 Abjuration, available only to wizards. Casting time bonus action. You can only cast this on yourself, and it has a duration with concentration 10 minutes. And this basically just gives you magic resistance for the duration. And you get a partial evasion effect, right, against magic effects. So if you save and you would normally take half damage, you instead take no damage. That only applies to spells and magical effects. And like Dragon's Breath does not qualify as magical in the way they define it. Rules is written, okay? So this is, if this was like every saving throw, this would be S tier level 2 spell. But you actually don't run into spells and magical effects that often, depending on how the DM interprets their description of how to determine if something it counts as magical. But if you follow kind of a strict reading, this is actually rare. And even then, I think it's still a B ranked spell. Once you have, I wouldn't prepare this at level 3, which is when you first get level 2 spells as a wizard, right? I would not prepare this at level 3. But once you get to the point where you have just lots of room on your spell preparation list and you've got extra spell slots, I would put this on my spell list and just leave it sitting there. And if we run into some sort of like archmage we're fighting, or some sort of big spellcaster, then I would cast this on myself just to protect myself from those spells. Yeah. So it's a B spell. It's okay. It's one of those ones you'd want to keep on as a backup, but it's not a main use spell. Holy Star of Mystra. Level 8 evocation spell available to clerics and wizards. It's a bonus action to cast. Concentration 1 minute. You can only put it on yourself. It creates a glowing mote of light that creates a little bit of light around you. And then on bonus actions, when you cast a spell and in bonus actions on later turns, you can unleash a shining bolt. This is kind of like Crown of Stars. targeting one creature within 120 feet of yourself, except this one takes concentration. You make a ranged spell attack. It does force or radiant damage. The damage is 4d10 plus your spellcasting modifier. That damage is nothing to write home about. It's not great for an 8th level spell, but it gives you 3/4 cover, which is plus 5 AC and plus 5 to your dexterity saving throws. Okay? And that is sufficient cover to hide. You have to be out of line of sight, but if you're somehow out of line of sight and have this going, that's sufficient cover to hide. I don't know how you make that work, but interesting side effect if you're a stealthy cleric or wizard. And when you succeed on a saving throw against a spell level 7 or lower that only targeted you and didn't create an area of effect, you can take a reaction to deflect that spell back at the spell's caster, and then they have to save against it. So it's got a bit of a magic reflection effect as well. As far as the range damage, this is a D, and if that were its only effect, this would be a terrible spell. But it's got that AC boost is great for frontliners. I mean, everybody likes to have AC. I don't know if you'd probably shouldn't spend your concentration just to get that AC boost if you're not on the front lines. Like Stone Skin, right? Stone Skin is a fine spell, except if you're not on the front lines, you don't care that you have that resistance that much, and you should not spend your concentration on it. So this is kind of like that, and it only buffs you. So it's actually something interesting for tanks. Very interesting for, I think, frontliners. If you're a high-level frontliner, high-level spellcasting frontliner, like a Blade Singer, this would be great. Another 5 to your AC. Talk about sending your AC into the stratosphere, because this would stack with shield, right? That 5 AC from 3/4 cover stacks with everything. So really great for your AC. Yeah, overall, I would say this is a B ranked spell. Great for some builds, not great for all builds. Don't just get it just because it sounds cool. And a lot of time, this is not the kind of spell you want to take based on the role you're trying to play in the party. Laeral's Silver Lance, level 3 evocation spell for clerics, sorcerers, and wizards. It's an action casting. You need a silver pin worth 250 gold pieces, but it's not consumed. And it's basically like a light version, like a sunlight version, but not actual sunlight, version of a lightning bolt. So it goes out in a line. It's a little longer than lightning bolt. It's a strength save instead. So it's like a force that's like pushing things. It does force damage instead of lightning damage, but it's only 3d10 versus lightning bolt's 8d6. So that's less than half the damage of a lightning bolt. If they fail, it also knocks them prone. And it upcast by a 1d10. So it does upcast better than lightning bolt, but you do not want to be spending high-level spell slots trying to increase the damage out of this if you're a sorcerer or wizard, right? Sorcerer or wizards have access to lightning bolt and fireball. Those are both better spells than this. And that control effect of knocking them prone, not super great. Maybe the best use of it is knocking flying creatures out of the air if they don't have hover. Because if they fall prone while in the air and they don't have hover, then they fall out of the air 500 feet and slam into the ground. That's the best use for this, for that control effect. So I give it a C as a control effect. You might want to have it on your spell list as a backup, just because of that, to just deal with flying creatures. And if you're a cleric, well, clerics just don't have any good blast spells. So maybe take this. I don't know. I still don't know if I'd just be firing this off unless there was a flying creature with my spell slots. Unless I just have, you're so high level, you just have lots of spell slots. You're level 17 and you have like level 3 third level, 3 fourth level, 3 fifth level spell slots, and you're not using those most of the time. Yeah, blast away with this thing. Just be blasting things, knocking them prone. Sure. Overall, I say this is a D spell. Maybe it upgrades. You might consider it a C rank spell once you get to higher spell slots and you get to higher levels and just have a lot of spell slots available. Okay, with this one, I think they're just punking us. Symbul's Synostodweomer. Not bad, not bad. I don't know how to say this. If you know how to say it, put it phonetically in the comments for me. Level 7 transmutation spells, available to sorcerers and wizards. It's an action to cast. It lasts an hour, and you imbue a creature. It doesn't do anything when you cast it. What it does is you imbue a creature, a target, could be yourself, with the potential for healing, so that when they cast a spell, they can expend a number of hit dice equal to the spell level that they cast. So if they cast a third level spell, they can expend 3 hit dice, roll them, and regain those hit points plus your spellcasting modifier. So that's a strange effect for a really high level spell slot. I don't know if that's worth it. But if you circle cast this with prolong and enough people to give it an increase of 24-hour duration, which makes it 25 hours. So you cast this the day before, and for the next day, everybody has the ability. And if you have enough spell slots, maybe just put it on the whole party, and everybody can now do this at any time while they're casting. So this is kind of a nice way that they get free healing without even spending a bonus action to, like Durable will take a bonus action, and Arcane Vigor takes a bonus action. This doesn't even take any bonus action, and you don't expend any other resources other than your hit dice. That makes it a better spell. If you prolong it like that, this might be an A-level spell. Yeah, A-level spell if you prolong it. Songal's Elemental Suffusion. This is a long one. I had to split it up into 2 columns there. I apologize if that makes the text a little small and hard to read, but it's a level 5 transmutation spell available to druids, sorcerers, and wizards. Takes an action to cast. You need a pearl with 100 gold pieces, but it's not consumed, and that's the same material component that the Identify spell requires. So if you have that spell component, it qualifies for both of these, and neither spell consumes it. You imbue yourself with elemental power of genies. First up, you got the elemental immunity feature, which is misnamed because it gives you resistance to one of the chosen energy types. All right, so hopefully they can fix that with some sort of errata, so there's just less confusion. Then you have this elemental pulse that when you cast the spell, and at the start of each of your turns thereafter, you have this burst of elemental energy. So if you chose fire, this burst of fire shoots out from you, and each creature of your choice, so no friendly fire, has to make a dex save. They take 2d6 of that damage type, and if they fail, they're knocked prone. On a success, they just take the half damage, no prone. So you're like knocking people over. They're really leaning into the prone condition on these spells. There's a lot of prone condition spells, which can be useful. It's not as useful as perhaps it used to be because you've got topple mastery, and a lot of marshals have topple mastery. So like everybody's just knocking everybody down now. And you also gain a flying speed, 30 feet plus hover. So this is interesting. It's kind of like combining protection from energy, which is a 3rd level spell, with fly, which is a 3rd level spell. You get both of these effects now. You can choose the energy type, nice, and you have this burst, this elemental pulse to do some like extra little damage around you. But it also has a circle casting effect. But without the circle casting effect, this is a nice effect that you might want to have on a skirmisher. You fly by, do your attacks, but also just run past all the enemies, dealing a little bit more damage, potentially knocking them down. Same thing with a frontliner. You stand there in the front line, and they're near you, and they're going to take that burst every round, maybe get knocked down. The control effect is kind of weak. The self buff is nice that you've got that fly effect. You've got the energy resistance. So overall, this is like a B spell. But if you circle cast it, the circle casting for every secondary caster, you can target one more creature with a spell. So without upcasting using a higher spell slot, you can just target more creatures. And so if you have 6, if there's 6 PCs in the party, you're one of them. So there's 5 other players, and all of you have at least a 2nd level spell slot, which is what this requires for secondary casters. Then everybody can circle cast this with you. Everybody expends their 2nd level spell slot. You do a 5th level spell slot, and you concentrate on this. They don't. And now all of them get this effect. It increases the casting time to 1 minute. So you would cast this before combat. It increases the duration to 10 minutes. You still have to use your concentration. And now everybody has this effect, okay? Which on its own is pretty good. But you're circle casting. So you prolong it, and if there's 6 of you, you just prolonged it to 8 hours. So now for 8 hours, all of you have an energy resistance to one type of energy damage. All of you fly. All of you have hover. All of you have this pulse effect that knocks people down. Okay? When you circle cast this is S tier. And if you have more people, I would just get like spellcasting hirelings just so I can get to the 7 and then make this a 24-hour thing. And then we just cast it the day before. And for the next 24 hours and 10 minutes, the whole party flies. The whole party has hover. The whole party has energy resistance. The whole party has this pulse effect. S tier. Amazing when you circle cast this thing. Amazing. Spellfire Flare. Level 1 evocation. Sorcerers and wizards. 60-foot action. 60-foot range. Takes your action. It's a blast spell. It's basically the same thing as Scorching Ray, but it does more damage at every spell level. So if you upcast this level 2, it's more damage than Scorching Ray, and if you keep upcasting it, it just increases its damage faster than Scorching Ray does. So this is just better. It also ignores half cover and 3/4 cover. So it's better than Scorching Ray in that way. So they just obviated Scorching Ray. They should have removed Scorching Ray from the game now. Like, nobody should take it. It's a trap. Oh, also, this is Radiant damage, which is a better damage type than Fire. What happened here, Watsy? But this is a good spell. I give it an A as a ranged damage dealing spell if that's what you're trying to do. Overall, single target damage dealing spells is not a great thing for spellcasters to do. Like, you just don't get as much bang for your buck as marshals are getting. So overall, I'd say this is a C tier spell. Maybe until you just have a ton of spell slots and you're just upcasting this, blasting people's faces off, and you combine it with something like Hex or Hunter's Mark. Yeah. But what happened here, Watsy? The Spellfire Sorcerer gets Guiding Bolt instead of the spell called Spellfire Flare. What happened? The intern should be fired on this one, guys. Can you errata this, perhaps? Please fix it. Oh, look, another Spellfire Storm spell. Okay, level 4, Spellfire Storm, sorcery. It's an evocation. Sorcerers and wizards get it. Takes an action, 60-foot range. It's a concentration of 1 minute. This is like a souped-up version of the Moonbeam spell, except it can't move, bigger area, right? That's the main differences. It's still D10s. You basically get 1d10 per spell slot level. So if you upcast Moonbeam to 4th level, it also does 4d10. So same damage as Moonbeam, also radiant damage. They get half damage on a successful save. They only make their save once per turn, so very similar to all those spells. It's also a Constitution saving throw. This one has an additional control effect. It doesn't have the rider that Moonbeam does, where shapeshifters have disadvantage against it, but I've never actually seen that happen in game. Like, they've fought werewolves, but nobody's used Moonbeam on werewolves. So I've never actually witnessed that having an effect. They have a different rider on this one, which is if they fail their save, they have to choose. Oh, sorry. This only happens when they cast a spell. So if a creature in the cylinder casts a spell, they have to make a Constitution save, and if they fail that save, not this damage save against this one, when they fail that saving throw, the spell dissipates with no effect, like a counter spell, and whatever action they use to use it is wasted, but the spell slot isn't wasted. So basically, it's counterspell without you taking an additional reaction. So if you can keep their spellcasters in this area, because this area doesn't cause difficult terrain and it doesn't do anything to keep them from moving out. So if they're stuck in the area, they're going to have an auto counterspell on them every time they cast a spell. Now, monsters don't cast spells very often. So sometimes that'll be strong, sometimes it won't be. Also, a formatting miss here, because the upcasting note is in between the two sections of circle casting. So once again, Watsy, can you fix the formatting there? I almost missed it the first time I read this spell. So it does upcast 1d10 per spell slot level, but now it also has an additional circle casting effect if you circle cast this spell, which is the area gets bigger. And also you need a sapphire worth 25,000 gold, which is consumed. Wow. It no longer requires concentration. Every secondary caster has to spend a 3rd level spell slot, and you skip down below the upcasting note to read the rest of the effect, which is that table that you get. So depending on how many secondary casters, the area gets bigger and the duration gets longer. So you're circle casting this, which means this is the opportune moment to use the circle casting effect called Safeguard. I think Safeguard is garbage, but if you do it with this one, this is maybe the time to do it, right? Because you make that area huge, you put down difficult terrain, you put down plant growth to make sure the monsters can't get away, and then you safeguard your party in the very center of this, and now they can't touch you without going through this for several rounds, and it lasts 24 hours. So like, I don't know, you're in Curse of Strahd, you're in his castle, your party's dying, you're desperate for a long rest, you can't get out, you can't find a safe place, you create a safe place by doing this. You circle cast it, make it 24 hours, you safeguard yourselves in the center of it, it no longer takes concentration, and you all just take a long rest, camp, do whatever you want to do for 24 hours, and you're solid, right? And he can't, like, he's a vampire. Not only to take the 40-10 damage, he will take 20 radiant damage every round for being in the light. Oh, this is moonlight. It's bright light, but not sunlight. Well, he won't take the sunlight damage, but 40-10 damage, and it's radiant damage. So, but that only works if you have a Star Sapphire that you can just burn worth 25,000 gold. It's consumed. So, yeah, this is a C level spell at best, in my opinion, if you don't circle cast it. If you have the money to just blow 25,000 gold pieces on this, then it's a B. And once again, Watsy, what happened here? Spellfire Sorcery doesn't have the Spellfire Storm spell in their spell list. Instead, they have Fire Shield and Wall of Fire. Although this one I'm not even mad about, because I think Spellfire Storm is garbage. I'd rather have Fire Shield and Wall of Fire instead of Spellfire Storm. Maybe errata that gold piece cost? That's just crazy. Syluné's Viper. I don't know how to do that one. Level 3 Conjuration spell available to Druids and Wizards. Bonus action casting time. You can only target yourself and it'll last an hour. No concentration. So this gives you, it's got like a snake looking effect for flavor. It gives you 15 temporary hit points. The spell ends early if you have no temporary hit points left, but it doesn't have to be temporary hit points from this spell. So you could be casting False Life to keep this going. While it's active, you have a climbing speed equal to your speed. Interesting. Thematic. So cool. And you have Venomous Bite, which takes you have to take a magic action to do this. And when you do, you make a ranged spell attack against using the snake thing against one creature within 50 feet. On a hit, the target takes 1d6 force damage and has the poison condition until the start of your turn. While poisoned this way, it's also incapacitated. And you can upcast this. You get 5 more temporary hit points and another 1d6 to the damage. At first, I didn't like the spell, but the more I analyzed it, the better the spell got. It's only level 3. It's kind of an expensive to cast. I don't know if I'd cast this when I'm level 5, because you want to save those for much more impactful spells. But once you have plenty of spell slots in your higher level, this is probably worth casting. It's a 1 hour duration. It's going to take your magic action, so this you can't be casting other spells with your action. You can cast spells as a bonus action, and this doesn't count as casting a spell, so you can cast spells with a spell slot as your bonus action. So sorcerers automatically have an additional, it's even better for them because they can quicken cast any spell they want. They can quicken cast Fireball as their bonus action and then magic action do this. Now, you're not casting this for the Venomous Bite damage. The Venomous Bite damage never catches up with just a regular scaling of your Firebolt. Firebolt always does more damage than this. Even if you cast this with the highest level spell slot you have, it never catches up to Firebolt, okay? So you're not doing this for the damage. You might upcast this just because you want a little more damage that is persistent, and for the extra temporary hit points. The main reason you use this spell is that control effect is strong, right? If they're not immune to the poison condition, then you're going to poison them and they're incapacitated. You're just taking people out until the start of your next turn. So one at a time. This is quite a strong control effect, especially for something that doesn't take concentration. So you could lay down at the start of the fight your big concentration control effect, Hypnotic Pattern, Tasha's Hideous Laughter, whatever it is, not Otto's Irresistible Dance. Okay, that one's a trap. You lay down your big concentration control effect, and then you still have this going, and you just cast it then because it's a bonus action, and then the rest of your turns, you're plinking away, hitting those people that the spell didn't work on, still controlling them, incapacitating them, ending any spell concentration they've got. You're doing a little bit of damage, and you're also poisoning them, which doesn't matter because they're incapacitated. This is quite a strong control spell. If you want to be the super controller in the party, get this. This is better than Command because you don't have to keep recasting it. Plus, if you circle cast this to prolong it and increase the duration to 8 hours, or add 8 hours, so now it's 9, or add 24 hours, so now it's 25. Amazing. This is a great spell. I like it. I give it an A. And the last spell, we're going to end on a weird one. Wardaway. When I first read that title, I assumed this would be some sort of way to dispel buffs on enemies, like dispel their wards. It's not that at all. Okay, level 1 Abjuration, Bard, Cleric, Paladin, and Wizard have it. It takes an action to cast. It's an instantaneous effect. You target one creature. They make a con save. Constructs and undead automatically succeed. If they fail, they take 2d4 force damage, and you can upcast it for another 2d4. Don't do that. And when they fail, their speed is halved until the start of your next turn. And on their next turn, they can only take an action or a bonus action, not both. On a successful save, they just take half of the crappy damage and no other secondary effect. All right, so the damage is terrible. That's not why you might want to do this. Having their speed is interesting. If you're just casting this by yourself, don't use this spell. Like if you're not coordinating and engaging in teamwork with the rest of your party to stack the slowing effect, don't do this. This is just a waste, okay? But if you are combining this with other people in your party, like you got Spirit Guardians cutting their speed in half, you got Dirge cutting their speed in half, you hit them with this on top of that. So this is very good if you have Dirge going and you're hitting them with this. So now they're moving at 1/4 speed. And then you have like a Ranger with a longbow hitting them for the slow weapon mastery to take off another 10. You've reduced their movement speed to 0. And now they just sit there and Dirge and die. Okay? So if you build around it and engage in teamwork as a group, this can contribute to something else being devastating. On its own, this is not good at all, right? But if you combine it with other things, it could be quite good. So overall, I give it a C, but if you combine it, probably an A. Yeah, probably an A. Just for the sake of like locking people down and they can't get out of like your Dirge. All right, that was it. We made it. Here's the whole table again. Like I said, mixed bag. Some things are great. Some things with their circle casting are S tier. And I didn't even go through and like analyze the circle casting effect that you could add to every one of these spells because you can circle cast anything, right? I just did that on a few of them. So there's a lot of interesting potential, especially those circle casting effects you can put on every single spell in the game, not just these spells. So we're talking about a whole new ball game when it comes to spell casting. And yes, somebody brought up a good point. Like, some people feel like a lot of people feel like there's a martial caster divide, and this just made the casters better. I agree with the whole casters got an uplift here. I don't think there's really as much a divide as people say. Like the marshals are always super important. A party that has no marshals struggles in every one of my adventures I've ever run as a DM. Like they struggle. So you have to have marshals. They're the ones that are dealing the damage, taking out the monsters. The casters are kind of like controlling and softening people up with some AoE, and they work together, right? Like a martial party with no casters is going to struggle too. Like there's not a divide, guys. We're all on the same team. You have to work together to be an effective party. All right. But yes, this just up-leveled all of the casters. They should add the equivalent of circle casting to the marshals, right? Something like shield wall, right? When you and a bunch of marshals are standing together, you get the shield wall effect, or you get the, what's it called? Pike. There's something with the, I can't remember what it's called. Swiss pike square, where all of you have these pikes and you create like a wall of pikes and people can't get past it, right? There's one more. I mean, there's a bunch of examples of this from real world combat, battle, war type stuff where you would use this, right? The Spartans, right? That's what I was thinking of. The Spartans, where they hold their shield and the shield's big enough to both cover them and the guy next to them, and then everybody's attacking with their spear. So everybody's got this big 1.5 shields in front of them, right? All kinds of ideas for how they could create circle casting for marshals, and I think we should, right? Let's give the marshals a little more. Yeah. All right. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time. Remember, if you don't have enough D&D in your life, you can find me on Discord, join my Discord, or find me on Start Playing Games. Both those links are in the description. And remember, everybody, be cool to each other when you're playing D&D. It's for fun.